Welcome everyone. People are joining, so we'll just give it one more minute and then we'll get started. Okay, let's get rolling. Thank you everyone for joining and welcome back to part 2 of our holiday wellness series. My name is Allison and I'm the coaching program leader at Mentavi. In part 1, we explored what happens when stress spikes and our emotional control and stress tolerance takes a hit. Today, we're continuing that conversation, this time focusing on resilience and the executive function skills that support it. Resilience isn't about powering through or pretending everything's fine. It's about adapting, noticing what you need, and being able to follow through on things that help you stay grounded, even when the season gets busy, emotional, or unpredictable. Our 3 executive function skills today help us do exactly that. These are cognitive flexibility, metacognition, and working memory. And our coaches will walk us through how these skills show up in real life, especially around ADHD, sleep, and nutrition. We have 2 wonderful coaches with us today. I am pleased to introduce them to you. I'll allow them to provide their own mini intro, and we will start with Valerie Snyder, our ADHD and behavioral health coach. Val, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Valerie, and I am a behavioral health nurse, a certified health and wellness coach, and I also live with ADHD myself, so I know firsthand all the challenges and strengths that come with this wiring, and I'm very passionate about helping others understand their own unique wiring and turning that self-understanding into meaningful, lasting change. So welcome.
Wonderful. We also have Karen Kipp, our registered dietitian and nutrition coach. Karen, would you like to say a few words?
Yes. Hello, everybody. I am Karen Kipp. I am a registered dietitian nutrition. I have a master's in exercise physiology, and my goal is to help people just kind of form the best eating pattern for them to feel their best, and also add the activity exercise if that is something that they'd like to do.
Wonderful. Thank you both. All right, turning back to Valerie, when we talk about resilience, we're really talking about the 3 executive function skills working together, the ability to adapt, the ability to notice what we need, and the ability to remember and use our tools when things get stressful. Can you walk us through how ADHD impacts these 3 skills during the holidays?
Yes, thank you for that question, Allison. And you're absolutely right. Resilience really does come down to those 3 skills working together. And for people with ADHD, the holidays can put extra strain on all 3 at once. So let me share how some of these skills tend to show up during the holidays and some approaches that we can use to better support them. So the first one would be cognitive flexibility, and that is adapting when life shifts. So with with cognitive flexibility, our ability to adapt when plans change really does take a hit for us. So for many people with ADHD, stress often makes the brain more rigid. So when some unexpected change in plans happen or whatever, um, whenever something you're not expecting tends to show up, like, for instance, your flight gets delayed, or someone suggests a last minute activity you weren't mentally or cognitively prepared for, what often feels like a minor pivot to someone else can often trigger real overwhelm or even ADHD shutdown. For us. So, as we know, the holidays are full of this type of unpredictability, and those transitions can pile up pretty fast. So one thing I like to use with my coaching clients is something called "What's the next best option?" And it's basically reframing when something like this does happen, something that we're not planning for. What's the next best option so that this pivot, so that we can pivot and not spiral, basically. So let's say, for example, you were planning on wrapping gifts this, one particular morning, but your kids wake up early and they want your attention. So instead of getting stuck in that spiral of, oh my gosh, now my day is ruined because I can't keep to my plan, one thing to ask yourself is like, what's the next best option? So maybe it might be changing your plan, like wrapping gifts during their nap time or doing it tomorrow, or maybe even asking your partner to take them on a little outing. So then that way you can continue with what your plan was and get things done. So it's not about having the perfect plan or executing it perfectly. It's about training your brain to pivot instead of spiral, like I said earlier. Uh, the next executive function that we're going to talk about is metacognition. And metacognition is being able to notice when you start to become emotionally overloaded early. So that's our ability to see what's happening inside us. So a lot of times we miss those cues and we end up being a little reactive and not noticing that we have just had a completely inappropriate reaction until we're in the middle of it. So oftentimes our ADHD brains really do miss those early signs of stress, and emotional overload really does come quickly and with little to no warning. So this is something that we want to be aware of. So we want to work at getting better at noticing patterns such as sudden irritability, impatience, zoning out, or sensory overwhelm. So, things like, all of a sudden the music's too loud or everybody's talking at once and you can't follow a conversation. So, a lot of times the challenge is that people don't realize that they're overwhelmed until they're already, like I said, in full reaction mode. And, we find ourselves, snapping at somebody unexpectedly or shutting down completely. So one good coaching tool that I like to use with my clients is what I call like traffic light shut-ins, traffic light check-ins. And what you want to do throughout your day, especially before or during big events or even after those events, is you just want to pause and ask yourself, like, am I green, yellow, or red right now? So green basically means that you have cognitive bandwidth, you're regulated, you have capacity to deal. Yellow means you're starting to feel a little stretched and you might notice that you're a little irritable or tired. And red means, I'm at capacity, I'm maxed out, I do not have the bandwidth to deal with this right now. So what I would often suggest to people is, maybe before you head out to that holiday party, just try to determine for yourself, like, where am I at? Am I at a green, yellow, or red? So that way, depending on what your level is, you can give yourself choices. So like, for instance, if you're at a yellow before you arrive to this party, you can pre-plan what your strategy is to manage that. Maybe it's going to be arriving to that party a little bit late, or maybe, leaving a little bit early. It just gives you choices you, you know, before you actually shut down. So that's one way of managing that potential emotional overload. So it's about catching yourself before the slide or during the slide before it actually turns into a crash. So that is one good strategy to utilize. And then the third executive function is working memory. So that's the hard one, right? We can give you all these good tools to utilize, but it's another thing remembering to use them when you're actually in that stressed out place already. So our ability to hold on to information and strategies when we need them. So when you combine ADHD with holiday chaos, working memory really does take a major hit. And people forget their boundaries. They forget their positive self-talk. They forget their coping strategies. So, or even, tasks that need to be completed. So it's really about having those too many browser tabs open in your brain and nothing sticks and everything feels super overwhelming. So a good coaching tool I like to use for myself, and I've shared with some of my coaching clients as well, is when then scripts. So basically preloading boundaries with a simple, when this happens, then I'm going to do this or say this. So you can write them down ahead of time or you can practice them out loud ahead of time. So then that way you don't feel caught off guard when you find yourself in these situations. For example, my Aunt Linda likes to talk about my job search. How's it going? What's going on? Have you found one yet? She wants to know all of the tea. So one thing I have to practice saying to her is, and you can use this in almost any situation, is I appreciate you thinking of me and I'm handling it and we'll share updates as I have them. So simple as that gives them, helps you set that boundary and lets them know that, hey, this is, really something that uh, we don't need to discuss right now. So, let's just keep it moving. So that is another good thing to do is just practice, I'm anticipating that this certain situation or this certain conversation is going to come up, and this is how I'm going to handle it. So having that external support doesn't mean you have to invent your response on the spot. So then that way, when your working memory is already overloaded, you don't have to, become even more stressed out in the moment, basically.
Thanks so much, Val. Such a great reminder. Resilience for ADHD is not about trying harder. It's about supporting the mind so it can pivot, notice what it needs, and follow through without shame and extra burden. So let's shift a little bit and move into the nutrition and sleep realm. We know that nutrition and sleep plays a bigger role in resilience than people realize, especially during the holidays when routines get disrupted. How do stable blood sugar, hydration, and fueling support these three executive function skills? Karen, you are up. Could you walk us through how these
Sure.
skills are impacted and any tools you might have?
Yeah, and Valerie, I love what you said. I love just setting yourself up for that success. And that's what I want to talk to you about nutrition. There's so much about nutrition that we can really help ourselves ahead of time. And I say this to my clients all the time. I am so sorry for the information that they Googled and they've been following and it hasn't worked for them. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and it actually can do more harm than good. So for the brain works on carbohydrates, works on other nutrients too, but it really needs some carbohydrates. You need a nice, steady supply of carbohydrates throughout the day so the brain can handle stress, so you can think clearly, so you can be your best. And so that means generally 3 meals a day. Don't skip breakfast. That's going to be important because our blood sugar is at its lowest at that time. And so if you have a breakfast that includes carbohydrates, not just a dozen eggs like some of my clients do, you know, you want to have some carbohydrates. And I'll talk about the healthy carbohydrates to choose. Some people can't do lunch. That's okay. You might do a snack in there, a healthy snack, and we'll talk about that, and then a dinner. But if you're going to a celebration, if you're going to a party, if you're going to a big gathering, and you get there and you're starving, and your blood sugar's low, you won't be your best. You'll make some bad decisions that won't be the best for you. You'll feel bad later. And that's just human nature. That is just that your brain, it's losing you head into kind of emergency mode because your blood sugar's lowering and your brain will say, I'm done, not trusting you anymore. I want you to eat all that candy, and then I need that liter of Coke over there too. And it's hard to slow down at that point. So once you get into emergency mode, it's really hard to say, wait, I want to eat healthy. It's pretty much done at that time. So set yourself up, look at a healthy breakfast. So when we look at healthy carbs, and all you hear about is they have to have protein, 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 protein. That is not true. Our body only needs so much protein, generally 12 to 20%. It just depends. And remember, if you're deciding on how much protein you need, your body fat doesn't need protein. So a lot of people decide they need certain amount of protein to their body weight, but body fat does not need protein. So that kind of gives you an idea that we don't need to overdo it. Overdoing our protein, it's hard on the kidneys, it's hard on the intestinal tract, and our body needs it. It's important, but just not over. So my patients have a dozen eggs in the morning, not the best, especially when your cholesterol is high. So if you have eggs in the morning, then add some whole grain toast, add an English muffin, add some fruit, have something that has some healthy carbohydrates. Your healthy carbohydrates comes from fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes, which are beans. Those are your healthy carbohydrates. There's no carbohydrates in animal foods, animal proteins. There's not in fat. So that's where you want your healthy carbohydrates. Yes, carbohydrates like candy and cookies and the pop and donuts, they're not the best carbohydrates. I'm sure you already know that, so you don't want to have those throughout the day. But it's okay at a celebration to have them, but just not a huge amount. So set yourself up for success by having those three meals. Your carbohydrates that have fiber in them, those are going to be your friends. That's the one because that's going to fill you up. And by the way, that healthy carbohydrates have a lot of good healthy bacteria when you're eating it. That's good for the gut microbiomes. And they send messages to the brain. I'm full. I'm done. Okay, you can walk away now. Go and talk to somebody. Don't have to eat more. So those are the points that I'd like to. As far as exercise, try to keep your exercise in there, whatever you like doing. So even if you're going, go out and take a walk. So that kind of boosts that adrenaline and whatever you like to do, try to keep that. It might be a short amount of period and it does not have to be like 30 minutes of one. You could do 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there, whatever works into your schedule.
Wonderful. Now, Karen or Val, could one of you also comment on how sleep starts to factor into everything that we're discussing?
Absolutely. Definitely Amanda Choco, our sleep coach, is very much missed here today because these three executive functions that we're talking about, cognitive flexibility, metacognition, and the third one that's escaping me right now because I have ADHD, working memory. See, perfect example, lack of working memory, are all really dependent on a good night's sleep, and they really do have big impacts. So, for instance, you need sleep for cognitive flexibility. You need sleep enables adaptability. So, oftentimes when we're sleep deprived, we get stuck doing things one way. That's just a feature of ADHD anyways. We tend to only do things a certain way. So when we are lacking sleep, like we're definitely locked into not thinking out of the box. Let me put it that way. And also disruptions in sleep will make small things feel like bigger deals or more major, like a major crisis. So we really do need that sleep for cognitive flexibility. As far as for metacognition, sleep really does support and strengthen self-awareness. Again, another thing, just having people with ADHD can or may struggle with is just that self-awareness. So we often miss our own physiological clues of being tired. When we're tired, we tend to miss cues. We don't realize that we're becoming more emotional or more reactive. So those are really important things to do. If we're more tired, it's harder for us to check in with ourselves to see, for instance, if we're trying to use the traffic light, checking in with myself, where am I? Am I a green, a yellow, or a red? As far as cognitive bandwidth, not having enough sleep makes that more difficult. I don't have I'm not functioning at my optimal self-awareness status. So I think that's a good thing to always remember as well. And I myself did not sleep well last night, and sleep sleep does directly impact working memory. It, you know, example right here, it really does impact recall. So, when you don't have enough sleep, all those tabs are open in your brain and they're stuck. Like you can't even go in and close them because it's kind of like when your computer just stalls, you can't get anything done. So that's why, getting enough sleep and trying to prioritize sleep is really important, especially with all the chaos of the holidays. These things are challenging for people with ADHD anyways, but when you do add that extra, stress and of the holidays and the expectations, these things just tend to be a little more challenging.
Thanks, Val. Yeah, I think back to conversations with Amanda, and a lot of times she talks about pre-bedtime routines, how to start to get your body to unwind a little bit and kind of calm the brain and almost prime it for sleep. One of the things that she discusses is trying to remove screen time and some of that blue stimulating hues that can kind of keep our brains awake. One of the things I started doing after speaking with her was just that. I'm more of a night owl, so for me, it took a little bit of work, but I decided to bite size it. So I said, okay, 10 minutes before bed, let's not get crazy here quite yet. I do put my phone face down on the nightstand, make sure the alarm is set, right? That's a really critical point too. And then, I try to read a couple pages in a book and just, get into that different kind of mental model and a little bit more of that calming state. Every once in a while, I throw on a, 3 to 5 minute meditation app, something that's, walks me through a breathing exercise or something of that sort. So, some of those little tips and tricks from her I found to be really helpful.
Mhm.
Kieran and Val, do you have any tips and tricks on your bedtime routine or things that have worked for you in the past?
Well, nutritionally, there's some things that you can do. For one thing, is that a lot of people, again, will only have protein at dinner time. So they might just have a large steak.
Mm.
And the problem is the body recognizes, hey, I didn't get my energy. So during the night, your blood sugar will stop to drop earlier. We wake up when our blood sugar starts to drop towards morning, but sometimes it'll drop earlier than that. And because your body, again, it's stressed. It's like, hey, I need some carbohydrates, and you didn't give them to me at supper. So
Mhm.
please get up and eat something. So that's real important. A lot of my clients have talked about that. A lot of times they've had diabetes, and they think, oh, I can't have carbs. And I'm like, no, you can. You're a human being. You still need your carbohydrates. We just don't want to overdo it. But that's real important to help with that, just not having those wake ups from nutrition standpoint.
Awesome.
Caffeine too, you don't want to go to, and everybody's a little different there, but some people are a little more sensitive to caffeine, some maybe not, but really know where you're at and know where your cutoff point would be for that, so it doesn't keep you awake.
One
Beautiful. Thank
thing
you. Go ahead, Val.
One thing that I like to do, and I'm sure Karen can give us a little more, give us a little more information on this. I know something that is helpful to me when I remember to do it is drinking a glass of warm milk before bed. I mean,
Mm.
I
Yeah.
know it's an old wives' tale, but it
Mhm.
it does work for
Yeah,
some reason, and I usually tend to have like really good quality sleep when I do that. Karen, do
that's
you?
good.
Why? Why does that happen? Why does that work?
Well, you do have carbohydrates in the milk and
Okay.
it's warm and that's soothing. So that might just really be helpful for sleep. And I've heard that from a lot of people.
Hmm.
So also another thing is sometimes, so if you have your dinner between 5 and 6, it's good to have a snack before bedtime. You don't want to have it right before you go to bed, especially if you have GERDs, which is reflux, and you don't want to do that. But maybe 2 hours before you go to sleep, have a small snack that has some protein and some carbohydrates, and that will help you sleep too. And the milk is perfect because it has both. It has protein and carbohydrates. And being warm, that is just, it's a little more soothing. So that's a good choice.
Yeah, especially this time of year, right?
Yes.
Great ideas. Yeah, that just reinforces that when your body is fueled consistently and rested, your brain has the foundation it needs to regulate emotions, adapt, and follow through even on the tough days.
Mhm.
Thank you all again for joining, and we hope you have a wonderful holiday season and a great rest of your week.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good one.